This short story written by You-Jeong Kim is about a farmer who was born free during the Japanese colonial rule between 1910 and 1945. The author is so famous that some of his works show in school textbooks.
The rascal. Mountains are starting to look like autumn. A bunch of big old pine trees growing, and some of them are shaking. They look like they're wearing a nun's headgear. The acorns, cherries, wild pears, and oak leaves are colorful. Water's coming out of the spring and wets the lawn. 2 wild rabbits are sipping the water there. The fallen leaves are swaying as if they're coming back to life. Beautiful chrysanthemums are moving in the cool breeze. There's a strong, earthy smell. This one is a club fungus. This thing smells of rotten leaves. This one is a pine mushroom. Oh no, this is mint. You-Jeong Kim is wandering in the area with folding his hands behind his back. He's moving among trees, smelling something in the air. He stops at the slightly bent pine tree. He lowers his face, smelling and searching for something in the ground. Yes, this is it, Chil says, looking at the small mound covered with rotten pine needles at the foot of a pine tree. He's raking the pine needles with his fingers carefully. My lovely pine mushroom. I wish there were more of them here, he says. After taking the mushroom, he's leaving the spot for another with his hands behind his back. Sometimes, when forces are yawn, he stretches while looking up the sky with outspread arms. No one would come out for pine mushrooms in this time of year because it's a busy harvesting season. But as far as Chil is concerned, it's different. Chil doesn't have anything to take care of as a farmer. He doesn't have farmlands. He doesn't have a wife or children to support. He doesn't have his own house to live in. He sleeps in a tiny room which belongs to other person, and the place is only big enough for him to lie alone. One of his friends wanted to hire him for rice reaping this morning, but Chil turned down his offer because he didn't want to spend time working for such a small pay. Rather, he liked to gather pine mushrooms in the mountains. He thought that any crops in the field could be his because anyone who takes the crop before others is the owner. He also thought that farm owners could have an indigestion because they had too much food to eat. Actually, he's gotten acupuncture 3 times for indigestion because he ate fast in order not to be caught for eating the food he wasn't supposed to eat. But he didn't care about the digestion problem because people could have the same problem even when they eat their own food. The bush became thick, and Chil couldn't pass through the bush, which was tangled with wild grapes, Siberian gooseberry, and kudzu vines. So he went around the bush following the lawn. He was walking carefully, wearing torn trousers, which were half open. He checked out old pine trees with 7 pine mushrooms, tied with arrowroot vine in his hand. He smelled the pine trees like a hunting dog. You-Jeong Kim was confused with which one was a real pine mushroom. There was a fallen leaf on top of the small pile of wild rabbit droppings. He found a big pine mushroom hiding under the leaf. He happily got down on his knees and carefully dug up the pine mushroom with his hands. This one's really big. He admired the pine mushroom in his palm with joy. There was a cliff at the dark side of corner. Water was flowing down the arrowroot vine, which was hanging from the cliff. The waters considered to be medicine water came from wild ginseng. He sat on a rock and yawned one more time. He was tired from the gambling last night. Warm sunlight was penetrating the forest. A squirrel hit and knocked down a pine cone from some pine tree. A wagtail was flying around. He could hear the sound of threshing from the village. There was noise of happy farmers in the field, the sound of harvesting machines, the sad song of young shepherds on the other side of mountain. When looking down the village in the middle of the mountains, he began to yawn again. He just figured out why he kept yawning. That was because he didn't eat anything since yesterday's dinner. He picked one of his big pine mushrooms and washed that in water. He began to eat from the head of that. He moved his big mouth to chew that in a funny way. He never imagined that he could eat such a delicious mushroom like that before, because many people, including him, were not good at finding pine mushrooms in the mountains. Usually, anyone who found pine mushrooms wouldn't let others come close to him. So You-Jeong Kim couldn't even have a chance to smell them before. People don't usually eat their pine mushrooms because they sell them to make money. 2 to 3 day work of pine mushrooms foraging's worth between 25 and 40 JON. Chil thought that it'd be pretty natural for him to support his family by selling his pine mushrooms. But on second thought, it didn't make good sense that he couldn't eat one of the best pine mushrooms in the country for that reason. So he decided to eat one more pine mushroom without washing that with water this time. How dare would others eat them? Not even once a year. Why are you stupid dumbass? He sneered other villagers by making a face. He belched when he ate the last piece of the pine mushroom. He didn't want any more after eating 2 of them, but he wanted something different at the moment. He thought of other foods like rice cakes, noodles, horse meat, dog meat, pork, and beef. Then a chicken was found in front of the burial ground, which was near where he was sitting. The chicken seemed to be looking for a place for laying eggs. He thought it was a good timing for him to go for the chicken. So he began to sneak up on the chicken at the grave. "Stay there. I'm coming for you," he said. He tried to catch the chicken with open arms. He drove her towards the top of the mountain. The chicken became panicked and ended up being stuck between rocks. It took him only a couple of minutes to catch the chicken. He went into the deep forest with the chicken in his hand. He tore the skin off the chicken and ripped off its legs. Then the inner organs came out. And then he buried the skin and inner organs in the ground. He started eating the chest of the chicken and the legs and then buttocks. Now that he was eating a chicken, he wanted to drink the alcohol, actually, too. But if it was impossible for him to have them together, he thought he was gonna drink mac chili later as the backup plan. After finishing half of the chicken, he realized that the chicken tasted worse than seasoned one. So, he just dumped the other half in the bush and went down the mountain. When he was close to the crop field, he heard someone calling him. "Hey, Uncle." It was Seung Pal, the blacksmith, a small guy that just came over the hill. Seeing Pal seemed to have something important to tell him. "Do you know that some of the rice in the Yeong-Jeong rice field disappeared?" Seeing Pal asked. Yeong-Jeong rice field was isolated from most other rice fields. If someone stole the rice there, it shouldn't be farmers because they are too busy harvesting to go there these days. So Uncle got very unpleasant with the Seungpal's intention because he thought Seung Pal was suspecting his younger brother, who was tending the rice field. "Let me ask you something. Why did you go that far to Yeong-Jeong rice field?" Uncle asked, glaring at him. "I was just passing by." Seeing Pal answered right away. Uncle thought that Seung Pal was mean because he tried to take advantage of others. "I still don't understand," Uncle said angrily. It's been more than 6 months now since Uncle came to the village. So he became familiar with what's going on in the village. He wanted to check with his younger brother about the rice-stealing incident. But because it could be a sensitive matter to his brother, he hesitated, uncertain what to do. Nobody wanted to hang out with Chil in the village, but he had many places to go, such as mountains, fields, beaches, and many others where he could enjoy himself. He was never worried about a place to sleep. He had a bunch of places to stay a night. For example, he could sleep in a mill, at a riverside, or on the pile of rice straw, if he's lucky enough. He didn't stay at one place for a long time, but he went around many different mountainous villages in Gyeonggi province. Staying in the same place was so boring to him. Chil wasn't actually born with Drifter. He used to have his own family, a wife and a son. So he never left his home for a long time. Like any other husband, he also used to talk with his wife to find a way of better life for his family every night. But unluckily, he ended up failing to improve their lives. Even though Chil was a hard worker, the only thing that was left to him was debt every year. There's no hope for a better life. One day, he woke his wife up in the middle of the night and told her to check what they still got. Then he began to prepare to write down a list of their properties by rubbing an ink stick in the inkstone. Old newspapers were used as wallpaper in their room. The newspapers were so old that they turned yellowish. Chil started to write down the things that his wife found: 3 jars of soy sauce, 2 hose, 1 sickle, rice balls, chopsticks, 3 bundles of straw, and then the amount of debt right next to each creditor. And he posted up a note to his creditors next to the list of his properties. The note said that the properties in the list were all that he got. So he hoped that creditors could share them together without a problem, even though they were way smaller than the total debt. He also said that he would be on the run, because he wouldn't be able to pay back all the debt of 54 wons. After locking the doors of his house, his family got out through the hole under the fence of his house. This was actually the turning point of his life. Chil and his wife used to take turn begging for a living. They just managed to survive raising their baby. At one cold winter night, they were taking shelter in an worn-out mill from a blizzard. His wife was feeding her baby milk. She looked sad, shivering in the cold. She seriously said to Chil,